Welcome to Spiritual and Sassy, the podcast where we bleed deep soul wisdom with authentic confidence.
We're your host,
Tressa
and Myra, and together we'll explore the mystical side of life, challenge societal norms and programming, and embrace our inner power.
Whether you're on a spiritual journey or just love a little sass, this space is for you.
Let's dive in and light up the world with a little more love.
Well, here we are.
Hello. That was a really attractive intro, swigging my water and just, yeah. Honestly, if you guys are just listening to us, you should definitely watch the video.
Oh, yeah, we're great.
We're 10 times more entertaining when you can see how ridiculous we get.
I know, and some of the ones I was just uploading to YouTube, I'm like, well, I keep half my face in the screen.
Oh my gosh. And it's so funny because I go... And like when I'm picking short clips and when I'm posting them, I really try to not stop our faces on like, or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
I try really
crazy.
Really hard. Yeah. And I try, because I try to use, when we do edits, the cool thing about some of the edits is there'll be our words on the screen. Like it'll, have the words, and I try to post the thumbnail with the words, catchy words, but our faces are doing something crazy or I don't know what's wrong with us, but so it's so funny. And I always think to myself, man, I hope Tressa's not too mad, but I really, really try. I try my hardest to not let it like stop on us making a crazy face. That's for sure.
That's when we can just have AI turn us into cartoon characters.
Dude, I'm about to just live my life as a cartoon character.
Yeah, we were cartoon characters.
Hell yeah, we did. Yeah. I was like, dang, yeah, like
we got it going on.
Yeah, we did. Now I made us Muppets. That was awful. So like, how in Muppets they have like the big mouth, and then like, they have like the little like black, and then the tongue. Okay, I guess I have a big ass mouth because it just made my whole face black, like this big black, like this big. And I'm like, wow, good to know. I have a big mouth. So that was not cute. I thought it would be way more funny. No, not it. Not it. I'm cuter as a cartoon character. So
yeah, the cartoon characters were cute. And then you make us babies too.
Yeah.
That was a little creepy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it change our voices to like baby voice?
No.
Like, that's even weird.
No. So that's trending right now.
Is it?
People, yes. And so my favorite little comedian right now is Theo Von. So if you don't like Theo Von, sorry if that makes you feel differently about me, but Theo Von is wonderful. David, a mutual friend, my former coworker, Tressa's coworker of 100 years, introduced us to Theo Von in the middle of like a snow apocalypse coming back from the Governor Business Forum.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's how long ago. Okay.
That's how long ago it was. Yeah.
David was cooler before other people, folks.
Yeah.
He was already listening to Theo. So he had his finger on the pulse. He knew the man. Well, now Theo's like blown up, okay? Everybody loves this guy. He's hilarious. He's ridiculous. He is really pushing his content with the babies. And so it's really, really, really funny. And there are other people doing that too. So it's actually trending.
Oh, maybe we better do it. You're the gal that knows the trends.
Yeah, but I don't know if we're cool. And I was like, they're funnier. We look weird. Yeah. I was like, I don't know. We're really hitting the mark on this one.
Maybe we just do a short clip as babies.
Yeah, keep your eyes out. We might be a baby.
Yeah, we might be a baby soon.
Yeah, you never know. Just surprise.
Something different.
It'll be like but they're saying like ridiculous stuff in their clips, and we're saying things like trauma, but we're a baby.
Yeah, exactly. My trauma.
Trauma. Yeah, I'm healing.
Lessons, learning, and healing, and chakras.
And then it's like this baby.
It's freaking funny.
It is really
funny.
So if we find a good one, you guys might see it.
I like it.
Yeah, that's how we'll go viral.
Yeah, I like it. Let's do it. We'll test it out. Yeah, so today we're going to kind of talk about a few different things, I think, because we were chatting the other day about, all the graduations, right? And so during this season, you see a lot of people you haven't seen in a long time. You have conversations. There's always this level of advice to the graduate, right?
Yeah.
So we were just talking about some of the conversations we'd had going through graduation season over lessons and milestones and those kind of things. So that's kind of going to be our topic for today.
Yeah. So I'll just dive in. I was telling
Yeah.
Tessa, like she said last episode, we were talking about prepping for graduation, right? And going through these things. Well, it happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Worst graduation ceremony I've ever been to. It went over like a whole hour extra because they started too late. But actually, I'll give you a play by play because I think there's a lesson in it. So, I was on time. I was so on time, I was an hour early. Okay, because I was afraid I would not be on time.
Because Myra has this issue with being on time, people.
Yeah, it's bad. So I'm like, I cannot miss this child's graduation. So I'm like, okay, I will just go and hang out in town and then go to my nanny's. And so I did. And I went and I sat with her for a while. And my nanny's 89 years old. And she looks amazing and she still drives and she's killing it. She's doing great. Like the lady's really popping off. But I asked her some questions. I'm like, hey, because I bought high heels. Okay. I don't really buy heels that often anymore, especially now that I work remotely. Like, I'm not going anywhere to wear these shoes. And so
Yeah.
I almost wore sneakers. And I was like, nah, I think I want to get some heels. So I ran into the local Belk, which is a department store. The Belk ain't Belkin like it used to, let's just be honest. But I did find some heels and I got them, they're super cute. They're white with some pearls on them. They're really pretty. Like they're very, very dainty, I guess, but
Feminine.
chunky. Yeah, super feminine. They're cute. So anywho, I bought them and I went over to her house and I sat down and I was, showing her my shoes and she's like, oh, I wish I could wear shoes. And she still has every pair of high heels she's ever owned in the box, still in
Oh,
her
wow.
room stacked. Okay. She also owns every piece of clothing she's ever owned. She's never gotten rid of a piece of clothing. Now, a lot of that comes from the fact, so she grew up, she was born at the end of the Depression. So she didn't live through the Depression, but she was very much the belief system, you don't get rid of anything, you don't have anything to even get rid of, you keep everything, there's nothing wasted. All of that was really instilled onto my nanny. So she just doesn't matter if she can wear them or not. She's never gotten rid of anything. She won't get rid of furniture. There's nothing gone out of her house. But she's not a hoarder, because she doesn't accumulate either. So it's, clothing and shoes, yeah, but she really don't bring in a lot of stuff either. So that's pretty good on her part, right? So anywho, I was talking to her about like her life and things that she's done. But one of the questions I asked her, I said, do you miss being young? Because when you think about different milestones, like we're about to go to my niece's graduation. This is her great-granddaughter. This was her first great-granddaughter. A lot of time has changed between now and then. I'm about to turn 30. So she's like, we're looking at different pivotal points in our lives. She doesn't know it. We're throwing her a surprise 90th birthday party and we believe she's going to make it to 90th. So we're putting it out there. And when she does, we're going to throw her this party. So there's a lot of like moving things going on in our lives, and I mentioned before my 5-year-old graduated kindergarten. So, or she's 6. I don't know how old she is anymore, but so I asked her, do you miss it? And she said, not really. She said, I mostly miss just moving my body differently. And she really elaborated on walking. And she's like, I love to walk. I would walk at the walking park. I would walk at the greenway. I would walk for hours. I would just walk with my neighbor. And then she became nostalgic about her neighbor who passed away. And she's like, I really miss just the walks that we took. And it was so interesting to me. And she mentioned traveling too. Like I miss traveling. But she didn't mention anything about like her face, her body. She didn't mention anything about like running the midnight oil, like there was nothing like that. It was, I miss walking. I miss moving my body. I miss that part of her body, like that was what she focused on, was the movement, the intention, the connections, and, being able to go and do different things. And to me, I thought that was just really interesting that it wasn't anything superficial. It wasn't, the things that I'm thinking about right now at my age of being grateful that I can go on a long walk, I'm not really thinking about that. Now, do I give gratitude to those things every now and then? Sure. But what I was expecting from her was totally not that. I'm over here like my face, or like my hands, or like, ridiculous shit, or like, oh, my boobs, or like something. I thought she would say something like that. No, this wonderful, profound human was like, I miss walking. And, that really put it into perspective for me of like the little moments and things that we take for granted and like being in the moment and like really being present in our life. Like, and really taking advantage of what we can do. We talked about a couple episodes ago about being on our phones all the time, right? Or
Hmm.
those short-term dopamine hits.
Yeah.
When like there's many times like my family and I used to go on walks a lot together that and we're not doing that anymore. And when she said that, it made me think like, gosh, you're right. Like I have such an advantage right now in my life to just be able to walk outside and walk miles. I can do that. And here's someone who misses that, who wishes they could do that. Meanwhile, I'm just sitting here on my phone or whatever, or
Yeah.
not taking advantage of that. And so that really, I don't know, that kind of really put that into perspective for me when she was saying those things.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I think you make some great points about even when you do walk or you do something, you don't do it with intention, you don't do it with
Mhm.
gratitude, you just take it a little bit for granted, right?
Mm,
And it made me think about, we've talked about this before a few times, but not very deeply, about if you could put intention into everything you do, even to the simplest thing, like walking. I want to walk and I want to feel my feet on the
mhm,
pavement, on the dirt. I want to be present with the air, with the trees, with the sounds, with your animal if you're walking your animal.
mhm,
Like we just do things so often with just zero mindfulness,
mhm,
and the more that you can put mindfulness in it, the more that you have gratitude and the more that you bring yourself into present moment, right?
mhm,
So I think that's something. It's interesting that my mom was just talking to me about this because she's 73, I believe. Yeah, 73. And sometimes she'll make comments like, about her wrinkles or this or that. And she is a Buddhist. And she said that one of the things that the Buddha said was that aging is one of the hardest things that humans have to do. And it really makes sense,
mm,
right? Because your body does shift, your body does change, you are more limited. Sometimes your mind shifts, right?
mhm,
You're more prone to things like dementia or Alzheimer's. And you're kind of, are you seeking for the youthfulness of what you had, or can you be like your grandma and still be appreciative even though you kind
mhm,
of miss some of the things that your physical body is no longer going to allow you to do at the
mhm.
same level, right? Like
Yeah.
she can obviously walk to some degree. She
Oh
just can't
yeah,
go out on these long walks, right?
exactly. Yeah.
She can't really, it's just it's a different space for her. And
Mhm,
it's funny because I've also been dealing with my grandmother, Joy's grandmother, who's I've known since I was 14, so I call her grandma. She's 88 and she had a bad fall last week, broke her femur, and so she's was in the hospital and now she's in a rehabilitation center. But it's interesting to see, and I feel for her so badly because it's so frustrating. She's very frail and now she has to do this rehab. And I was just talking to my mother-in-law today and I was saying, I truly do believe in divinity. I believe that everything has a divine timing and there's still a reason and a purpose that she's breathing and she's here.
mhm,
Sometimes when you're watching your loved one go through that, you start to question that. You're like,
mm,
what is the reason? Why is she having to experience this? And you see that a lot as people age. And it's something I don't have the answer to. But as I was
mhm,
talking to my mother-in-law today, I was like, I'm really going to meditate and pray on that so that I can have a better understanding from God's perspective, from divinity's perspective of what is the purpose and the reason. There's something to this, you kind of like end your life like you start your life. You're much more
mhm.
dependent on people, right? You're limited in your ability, sometimes baby like. And
Yeah.
so what does that cycle mean? There's something to it and I'm curious. I want to investigate it more to have a better
Yeah.
understanding.
I think that's interesting. And I mean, I've seen that too in my own life. I've experienced that with my other grandmother who had a completely different outcome. She literally became, bedridden and moved in with
Hmm.
us for, I think she lived for maybe like 11 months or
Hmm.
maybe a little longer. I don't know. It wasn't a long time, but it felt like for eternity because I was 16. And I remember
Yeah.
just complaining. I was crying. I remember the boy that I was dating at the time. I remember telling his mom, like, I can't listen to music. I can't have friends over because like you look down the hall and there's this person, that are nursing home level, had a hospice and
Mhm.
home health and couldn't get up and had a bedpan. And I'm like, who the heck's going to come to my house now? Like, I don't even want to be in my house. And like, I never really thought about the way that impacted me and the way that impacted, like, my first of all, I was an asshole. Okay. But I was 16. Not that that's an excuse, but
Yeah,
these are normal things. I was grieving and I didn't know that I was grieving. I was grieving
right.
that youthfulness of being able to just run around and be silly in my own space. I felt like my space was invaded and I didn't recognize it at that time as that. I was just mad, And I remember, like, she lived way longer than we thought. Okay. And my dad never left the house because he was afraid to. He felt like he needed to be home with her. They really couldn't go on vacation or go anywhere that year. And he felt like he had to be present, and my mom did. My mom's a nurse, and so she would help. And it really took a lot for them mentally and physically because
Hmm.
they were also with her. And, I remember being like, why? Like, I felt like, why the heck was she in my home? Like, hello, you have another kid,
Hmm.
or what the heck was my dad doing with this, or my mom, and like the toll that it took on them. And, they had to really make a lot of sacrifices, to structure their lives around what was my grandma doing, and who was there to take care of her, who was around. And, she suffered a long time. And so I feel like I definitely could pray and meditate to really have more of an understanding of that myself. But what I can feel from that perspective now is not knowing that my dad would die shortly after. It was, I feel like, time he needed with his mother.
Hmm.
And my mom needed that time with her because they really had a rocky relationship when my dad and my mom got married. And, even for me too, she favored my cousins from her other child, my uncle's children.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and like she thought they were the moon, the stars, and, God's gift to mankind. And they're awesome. They're really great people. We're all great people. But she literally looked at me in the eye one time and said, I didn't realize you were this smart. And I'm like, thanks.
Oh, I love
Appreciate
that.
it.
Yeah.
But I really think that that's all that was. That, and it's
Hmm.
unfortunate that she had to prolong it. And she was in pain, but honestly, with hospice care, they kept her pretty
Hmm.
medicated, And I know that at the time I was totally an asshole, and it was just this emotional grief and this roller coaster that I needed to go through. But I really do believe that it forged my relationship and ended it better than it could have ever been. And we were able to, she got to see me differently and got to see my dad in a different light and my mom. And I think it really healed that for them and their relationship with my grandma before she had to pass. And so
Yeah.
I feel like that's part of
Hmm.
it. I'm sure there's more to it, but I feel like she needed to be there.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think since it's been years for you, you can kind of look back and
Hmm.
reverse engineer. And I think you can have a different perspective sometimes after you get a little bit away from the emotion of it.
Yeah.
But it also, I thought about this. A couple of things is you become servicing to them. It brings service into your life, and you have to have a level of love. And I think those are two of our biggest lessons is to lead with love and provide service to each other. And that
Hmm.
is an opportunity that it's gifted us already, just in this short week. We've had to
Hmm.
prioritize things differently and do it through the lens of love. And
Hmm.
so I already can see to some degree lessons or the way that it's shifted some of the family
Hmm.
dynamics for the better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I'm sure there'll be more as things progress with whatever is going to happen in the next weeks, months, whatever that looks like. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, it's funny because you're talking to your nanny that's close to my grandmother's age, 88,
Hmm.
89. You're not even 30 yet. And I'll be 53, I think. I don't know, somewhere in there, 53, 54. I can't remember my age right now. This is July. But it was funny because I was outside Sunday planting flowers and I, it was hot. I was really tired because we'd spent a lot of the weekend in Salt Lake, so I hadn't gotten a lot of sleep. And it was the first time where, like, I had to honor my body a little bit and say, you don't, this isn't a marathon today for you. Like, I'm
Mhm.
tired, it's hot. So I had to go in, take a break, get some water, sit down. And I started to think, damn, is this age? Is this what age feels like? I don't
I
know if it was just a combination of those things, the heat, the lack of sleep. But, few years ago, I would have been like, I'd just go knock it out. It would be like 4 or 5 hours because I do a lot of
Mhm.
flowers and I love my yard and I put a lot of work into it. But yeah, I had to just be like, well, this is where we're at. Whatever the reason is, you got to honor it and do what's best
Yeah.
for you. So there were some breaks for me this weekend, but I started thinking about that. Is this my body telling me it's going to start to shift?
Oh my
You
gosh.
know,
Yeah. I feel that too in a different
Myra,
way. I'm like,
30th birthday was one of the most traumatizing things I've ever gone through.
oh,
The most trauma. I mean, honestly,
oh,
back then it was traumatizing for me. So I feel you.
what's really interesting about it too is, I'm not super deep into my birth chart. I know some things in my birth chart, but I'm not going to proclaim to be this person that is this, this zodiac astrologer person. Okay. I'm not claiming that. So just for those out there. But I asked ChatGPT to analyze my birth chart. Me and ChatGPT are friends, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, ah, shit, let's just plug it in. And what's really interesting is this is exactly what I'm going through personally, is exactly what my birth chart said that should be going through during this time, which is very interesting. But it said something about like ages 27, 28, and 29. Just I'm in my Saturn return. And honestly, I laughed because 27, 28, and 29 have been a what the fuck. I mean, like, what? And I wondered because, like, it's very interesting. I feel like my whole life I thought I was 30, and not physically, but mentally, because I felt like I needed to grow up. I needed to be independent. I needed to take care of myself. I felt like with my parents being older, because they were older when they had me. And so that's why Tressa and I literally link up. My mom's the same age as her mom. I mean, that's kind of
Mhm.
crazy, but they
Yeah.
had me later in life. And so I was surrounded by these older souls, these adults. I was surrounded by a ton of adults. I'd had no cousins my age, no children in my age around me. It was all my older cousins, my aunts, my uncles, my parents, my great grandparents, my great aunt, all these people around me. And then what happened with before my dad even passed away, I wanted to be independent. That's all I wanted to do. Independent, freedom. Myra wanted to make own decisions. And so my whole life, and then especially after dad passed away, I thought I was this old person. It's like, and 30 is not old. Okay, I know it's not old.
No,
But
it's
and
not.
I told my niece that. I'm like, you'll be 30 before you know it, bro. Like I feel like
Yeah.
I just graduated high school, so don't call me old. So I felt like I was this person now making decisions then. And I totally wasn't, right? And it's been so fun and kind of interesting. Like I used to dread turning 30. And I'm actually so freaking excited. I'm so excited. I want the fuck out of my 20s. I want the hell away from my 20s. Love
Start a
you,
new
light and
decade.
love. Yeah, like light and love, appreciate you, gratitude, all that jazz. Sending you away. Like
Yeah.
I'm ready. Like, and what's so fun is where I'm at in the season of life with my age. For the first time, I don't feel like I'm chasing something.
Hmm.
Like I've either
Hmm.
been chasing a baby, I wanted a baby. I was chasing job or money or career, and then I had a career change and a move and a house and chasing this and chasing that, blah blah. For the first time in years, honestly, since 27, 28, 29, I feel like I'm not chasing something. And so that's why I bring up the birth chart thing, because it was just so
Yeah.
interesting that it hit those 3 years.
Hmm.
And it's exactly what I felt like, is just constant chasing, chasing, chasing. And nothing was enough. Or
Hmm.
I checked something off and then something else fucking went apart. And then I'm like,
What's
oh shit,
next?
what's
Yeah.
next? Yeah. And for the first time, I'm not chasing anything. And
Yeah.
I'm like calm and I mean, I'm calmer than normal, I guess, but I'm at peace. And like, this is what healing feels like. Being at peace feels like
Yes.
being in my true authenticity, being me, being fully
Hmm.
free. And it's the coolest thing. And so like if this is what 30 feels like, then hell yeah, I'm ready. Like, I am so ready. And so it's really interesting because, like, I follow this thing on Instagram. I do believe that they are being served to me by the universe. I will believe it till I die because it's literally like in sync with everything I've ever gone through when I read them, like when I actually see them on my
Yeah.
feed. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, okay, that's cool. And it said something about like just really embracing like when these changes happen and when this flow comes. And so, anywho, I just feel like with age, I used to be afraid of aging. I used to, when I was younger, I thought I was older all the time. I thought that I was making decisions as this age in quotations right now.
Hmm.
I'm using quotes, but like I'm not afraid of it. And it was really cool. I think really talking to my nanny even made me feel better about it,
Yeah.
because like how beautiful was that was really cool. Like it was very
That
simple.
is cool.
Like she
Yeah.
didn't even
I
probably know
love the
that she
simplicity of it.
yeah, like, huh? Okay. And it was really interesting and it was neat to hear her perspective like that. And it's really changed the way that I'm thinking because like with Nola graduating kindergarten, I'm mourning this season, and I actually did pretty well. Like I cried a little bit, but I didn't cry like I thought I would cry. I usually get sentimental when things end, like
Uh-huh.
because you're
Yeah.
never going back into it.
No,
She'll never have a
no.
kindergarten year again.
Yeah.
We'll never have her very first day of school again or her graduate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those little things I get very sentimental about, like when there's a closure, and then you move on or whatever. But it's really made me think about just truly living and not wishing so much stuff away. Like
Hmm.
you'll have your whole life to experience A, B, C, and D for that land. You can buy the land eventually, or whatever. I don't know what people want. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like
Apparently land.
land.
There's
That's all I ever
it's
hear.
land,
People
people.
are like, I just want land. And I'm like, what are you going to do with it? Like, I don't know. Like, well, what's your plan with the land? But I don't know. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
I
Like,
know, I'm just teasing you. Yeah, I get it. Like whatever they're it's a journey. And sometimes I think in our younger years, I understand what you're saying. It's like, why were we in such a rush? Why were we
yeah.
in such a rush to adult, to, like you said, have a career, have this, have a home, well, a lot of it is what we perceive as important
Hmm.
instead of going into what's truly important for us, right? It's a
Hmm.
lot of what's important to the societal level. Because I was
Yeah.
similar, like, I remember thinking, my God, if I could ever make X amount,
Hmm.
$100,000, I'll just be honest, Troy and I in college,
Hmm.
we would be living large, bitches. Like, we
Yeah.
would be the best thing ever. I'm like, but then it was funny because when I went to Aspen's graduation in Laramie, Kathy's like, let's go by your old house. So we did. And I took some pictures and stuff. And I was talking to Troy about it a little bit. And he's like, I miss that.
Hmm.
I'm like, I do too. We had no goddamn money. None. Like,
Yeah.
I had cheese because sometimes we were down to one thing of cheese and I wanted a freaking grilled cheese. But it was so simple. It was a simple
Hmm.
time. We didn't
Yeah.
have bills or responsibilities or mortgage, or it was a simplistic time.
Hmm.
So it reminds me of what your grandmother said. It was such a beautiful answer because sometimes we don't appreciate the simple things that we get to do and the simple times in our lives.
Yeah, I agree. And that's exactly what I've been trying to say. Sorry, listener land, y'all are probably so sick of hearing me talk about my niece, but she don't listen to the podcast, and so whatever, I don't care. She's free game.
She'll never hear it.
She's yeah, who cares? No, but honestly, that's what I've been trying
Uh,
to tell her. I've been trying to tell her that because she comes from this background that makes her want to be very independent, and I totally understand it. Like I didn't even need to go through
mhm.
half the things she went
Yeah.
through, and I was already there mentally myself. I was ready to do everything she's doing. And I told her, I said, she had this little advice book, and I wrote, and Blake was really sweet. Blake's very sentimental, and all he said was, "We love you, and you will always be loved, and you're always welcome in our home and with our family and with our children." And I don't want to cry, but
I love
that's so
that.
simple. Yeah, like it's not,
Mhm.
buy a house. So I don't even know what advice people
Get
were
your
giving her. They were,
degree or get
yeah, get your
this,
degree.
or
Yeah, it
yeah,
was just,
don't
we
get
love
married
you.
till you're 25. I don't know what you tell
Yeah,
people. I
yeah.
don't know.
No, seriously, like, because
Yeah.
That's all the girls heard. And like she even told me she had one family member say, wait 10 years, then have your kid. And then you'll have all this. And they are very well off and they have a beautiful life and they have financial abundance, which is incredible,
Mhm.
wonderful. But like, I don't know, maybe that's not what the girl wants. Or there's different forms of abundance. There's different forms of being rich. You know, money's wonderful. Who doesn't want money? We all love money, right? But who knows if that's really what she wants? I don't know. But they were like, don't get married until for 10 years or get married, then have kids in 10 years. Don't have a baby. Don't have a baby. And then like someone else told her not to do this or not to do that. And my advice to her, I told her, I said, do as much as you can as soon as you can. Don't
Mhm.
wait. Don't wait. And I said, when my dad passed away, all my college professors told me to go home. Every one of them. Not one of them, like, I wish I could hug that girl. Like that girl just needed a hug. Like, she just needed someone to be like, you're okay. This is okay. And no, my professors didn't care. They don't care. And I know that. Like, I didn't seek them to care for me, but I told them what was going on and they're like, you should just take a break and go home. Maybe I should have. But I told them, I said, I will never come back. Like, you
Mhm.
don't know my circumstances. You do not know where I come from. You do not know my background. I am not a trust fund kid like half the other students I went to school with. And I can say that because it's really what I went to school with. I wasn't from that same group of people.
Yeah.
And, I was a first generation college student. Like, they didn't even know me. They didn't know anything about me. So telling me to go home was the worst advice ever, right? And I knew that. So I didn't go home. I finished and did what I needed to do. But I used that and told Valerie, I'm like, hey, these people didn't give a shit if I came to school or not. They don't care. Like, they're
Mhm.
just there to do their job. Now, some might, I'm not riffing on professors. Some might care, but especially in those early years when you're doing gen eds, they're not there for that type of thing. So that's
Yeah.
cool. And I understood that. I said, but what I wish somebody would have done is just really like go through this with me and say, hey, take a breath. Where are you at? What are your goals? What do you want to do? How do you want to shape this? And I said, as I've gotten older, like schooling might not be your answer. And that's okay because
Yeah.
she does
Yep.
want to do nursing.
Yep.
She does want to pursue that, and she already is a CNA. She finished that in high school, which is incredible. She already got that before she even graduated, so she can start out as a CNA, and then if she wants to be an RN or get her BSN or whatever, she can do that. But I told her, I'm like, don't, if that's what you really want to do what you wanted. Always remember to love yourself and do what Valerie wants to do first.
Mhm.
Don't, I say this as in like, who cares if such and such said wait 10 years to do this? Who cares if the boy you think you're in love with doesn't want you to go to school? Because who knows if that's the person you're going to be with. And so that's what I told her. I said, you got to put yourself first. These are the years to really, you should always love yourself and put yourself first. But these are those years where you can really, you're free. You have no obligations. That boyfriend, you're not married to this person. You don't have children. You don't have nothing no responsibility, really. You just get to be. And I'm like, do all that you can as much as you can and just really be. Just be. You can,
Mhm.
if you want to do schooling, then do the schooling. If you want to do this, then do this. But you do what you need to do. The noise is noise. And I told her in what I wrote, I said, just trust your gut. Always follow what
Yeah.
your gut really says you should be doing, not what society or other people tell you to do.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, like when people like in those milestone moments, graduation. I remember at my wedding there was a book for people to write advice to us, and I kind of am conflicted on advice because people give advice about their journey, their
Exactly.
learning, their lessons, right? And I think they do it with good intention. Like the woman or person, I guess I shouldn't say woman, the person that you're talking about that said, get married but don't have a kid for 10 years and you can have what I have. That's
Yeah,
that's her journey and that was beautiful for
exactly.
her and that worked out
Hmm.
wonderful for her. But I really struggle with, like, is it even my place to give advice? I love what Blake
Hmm.
did. I'm gonna steal that,
He was,
honestly. Right? He
yeah,
was spot on.
he was perfect.
Like, you do you, and you're always welcome here. You've got love. That's what I'm gonna
Hmm.
tell you. You always have love. I love that so much because, yeah, we push our agendas onto other people, what we're
Hmm.
comfortable with. And I think about my journey in my 20s and 30s around the pressure that I felt to have children
Hmm.
from everyone, really. That's literally, I would, our high school reunions, I would tell Troy, I don't want to go. I don't want to answer these questions. Like, why
Hmm.
do you not have kids? It's actually becoming more acceptable
Yeah.
because more people aren't having children. But I did try to have children, but once I made the decision that I'm okay with not having children, I
Hmm.
had the realization that I never really wanted children for myself.
Hmm.
And thank God it never happened. I really,
Yeah.
truly, in my heart, know that now. But it was
Yeah.
all of these outside pressures of this is what you do, why have a baby? You need to have a
Yeah.
kid. And I truly, looking back now, I know it wasn't part of my journey. But I
Hmm.
was not able to say that for myself. I wasn't in my authenticity enough. I was just
Hmm.
allowing the peer pressure to guide my direction.
Hmm.
And that's just one example, but so often we do that. So, yeah, I don't know. If people ask me for advice, sometimes I'll just be like, this is what worked for me, but figure out what works for you or a
Hmm.
variation of what works for you. Really try to listen to yourself, listen to your gut, listen to your heart, and honor that, not what
Yeah.
I'm saying or whoever's telling you. So often we give up our power.
Yeah, exactly. And also too, I feel like I know many people, and I've really refrained from my opinions or my advice.
Hmm.
And a lot of people come to me for advice or opinions or thoughts or what should I do? They don't really want to hear what I have to say. And not in a disrespectful way, but they don't. Most people, you already know what you're going to do. You already know. You already know the answer. We
Yes,
go
we do.
seek advice and seek these other answers to conflict us because we're trying to shift or shape our narrative to be something different or to convince ourselves that we need to do this or we need to do that when we already know. You already know. But if you're already
Or you're
asking the
looking for
questions,
validation.
yeah, you pretty much,
Sometimes, yeah,
yeah, exactly. And I know that
yeah.
now. And I've realized that. And so a lot of the times, like when I'm dealing with different people and they're in different milestones in life, I love what you said because that's exactly the way I phrased a lot of things is, especially with children. This was my experience. Like
Mhm.
I was afraid when I had a C-section and I was scared. That was my experience, but it wasn't bad. It actually
Mhm.
turned out okay. I grieved the fact that I had to have a C-section. I did. I felt the emotion, but in my experience, I got to do A, B, and C. I don't know if that will be your experience, but this is trusting flow, like there's a
Yeah.
reason,
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just an example. But I really, really am selective with how I say things to people, and I try to frame it that exactly, you're exactly right. This was my experience. This is what I went through. This is what worked for me, but it may not work for you. And that's okay because you're right. People too much, they're sharing their energy too much. They're giving up too much of their energy. Honestly, it's not even really meant for people to answer for you either, or like, I mean, knowledge is power. And I believe in sharing ideas and knowledge in the collective. And I mean, we're honestly giving advice sometimes on this podcast, like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I do agree with you where it's my experience and my journey is my journey. My journey is not
Yeah.
Tressa's journey. We might have
Yeah.
similarities, but it's not the same. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, to some degree, we're giving advice or giving direction, but always with the caveat of, this is stuff that's worked for me. This is stuff
hmm.
that's worked for you. And, give it a try, but then adjust it. I've started out so many things with when I did my Reiki master's class,
Hmm.
11, 12 years ago. I remember the woman who taught us gave us a protocol to start with, right? Like you have to have a foundation of how you start your sessions, what happens in your session, how you end your
Hmm.
session. But I'll never forget, she said, this is just a starting point. Your practice will become unique to your talents.
Hmm.
Don't adhere to this. Like this is just allowing you to start to use the energy, to start to
Hmm.
understand where your talents are. And from there to today, it's so different for me because I've always remembered that. Let it flow to what suits you. You
Hmm.
might start with something, your grounding practice might be a certain way today. And as you shift, as your vibration changes, as you grow, it may look completely different in 6 months, 2 years from now. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Allowing it to just be a starting point and letting it go to where you need it to go is so important. And even I pray for people every day But one of the things I've learned is I don't pray for what I perceive they need. I don't
Mhm.
know what they need. I only pray for them to have unconditional love and whatever serves their highest good. It's not my journey.
Mhm.
Don't know what that looks like for them. So I've
Yeah.
really tried to come away from that and not confine it and control it.
Yeah, I agree. You shared that with me, and I appreciated that. So I started doing that. And it works for me too,
Yeah.
and it really changed the way that I pray for people because, my mom's really religious and she'll be like, "Pray for me for A, B, C, D, E." Well, I don't really know if the
For
A,
what
B,
she
C, D,
wants.
E
Yeah.
is actually what you need or
Yeah.
really what the is going on. Like who
Yeah.
knows if that's actually the problem. No, I know it's not. It's not even who knows, I know. And so I changed the way that I pray for people too. And
Hmm.
and I appreciated that because it's very different now. I don't, you're right. Like, if I know someone going through something, I only know from the surface or what they've chosen
Right.
to share with me. There
Mhm.
could be a whole level of things going on that I'm unaware of. And so I do the same thing. I pray for love or whatever they may need or send healing love to them
Mhm.
if it's, or whatever it is that I
Yeah.
feel inclined. But I no longer pray specifically for certain things for people anymore. I stopped doing that, and it's completely shifted my relationship with prayer in general too. It's helped me really focus my energy on the love part of it and like love to myself, love to whoever, like whatever that involvement of it has shifted instead of me just rattling off things I think these people need that I have no clue about.
Yeah. Even for myself, I try
Yeah,
to not
exactly.
focus in on an outcome that I think I want. I
Hmm.
just pray for what do I want to experience? What do I want to
Exactly. Yep.
feel? Yeah. And
Yep.
let that come however that's supposed to. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
So,
exactly. Because this goes back to what we talk about almost every episode. That's being in true surrender and in true flow
yes.
because you're no longer praying for that specific, you want a, dip. I don't know. That's all I can think of. Don't ask me. That's all I can think of.
I mean, I bet
But
there's a lot of people out there praying for that
you
buffalo bean
really,
dip.
really, really want yummy food, so you redirect it because it's like,
Yeah,
it's
I
different.
want yummy food. Maybe it's not the buffalo bean dip. Maybe it's
Yeah.
the taco cheddar dip. I don't know. That's
I
gonna
don't know.
hit the
Or
spot.
spinach artichoke dip. You just never know.
Don't limit yourself. You'll end up
Yeah,
with the wrong dip,
exactly.
people.
You have no idea. Yeah, you have no idea what dips are out there.
That's funny. Well, this
I
has been a
couldn't
good
think
one.
of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I love it. Hey, man, we all like
I'm all
yummy
out of
food. Yeah.
bullshit, I guess. Yeah, that was all I could think of. It's not bullshit, but I'm like, well, we talk about the same things like cars, jobs, careers, life, baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just hell, I don't know what people, you can want anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so,
You sure can. There's nothing wrong with that. Want a
yeah.
good dip?
Delicious.
Delicious meal.
I don't
It's
know.
so true. Oh, that's awesome. Well, this has been a good one, talking about lessons and milestones. And I was just trying to think if there's anything else I jotted down before we end today. What about you?
No, I don't know. That's really it, I think. I really, age is a gift, and it really is. And
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
said it before, I think on an earlier episode, just really cherishing moments and like I see so much stuff where it's like, especially with I mentioned earlier my daughter graduating kindergarten and people mourning the childhood, and I've stopped mourning it. I've actually just started living it, like
Hmm.
mourning shit that's over. Like I can't go back. I can't make her 3. I can't make her a baby again and if I'm too busy mourning, I'm not living. I'm not living in the moment with her and I'm not experiencing these things with her. And same thing with my son. And, I can experience things differently because I know how fast it goes. I knew how fast it would go, but I'm no longer mourning that. I'm enjoying it and living in it. And I'm excited for her to grow up. I'm excited for her to be a person because I'm going to love her and know her as an adult longer than as a child.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
very true, actually. Hmm.
like sitting here and crying over the childhood and living only in the childhood is really a disservice to myself,
Hmm.
Like, how, yes, how can I be her mother now? Boy, do I love her being little. You bet it. Do I love Draco being little? Oh, absolutely. And I love these moments. Could they stay little forever? Boy, that would be fantastic. But that's not life. I didn't stay little forever. Trusted, you didn't stay, you know what I mean? Like,
No,
that's just
no.
not it. But embracing that and thinking about, like, as I age, she ages. What am I doing with myself? How am I living in the moment? How am I bringing in these things back where it's, man, when we ask her, what did you love about your childhood? I really like going on a walk. You know what I mean? Like, what are
Yeah.
those, what's really being in the moment, and what am I really showing her and teaching her and helping her because we're going to have a relationship, hopefully. I mean, I'm assuming as an adult. And how am I developing this relationship into the adult relationship? And I think people don't think about that sometimes. I think they focus so much on the childhood and then they have these rocky relationships as adults. And then you know what I mean? That's for another day, maybe. But it's what am I doing to help continue this? Because we're going to love each other for so many more years.
Hmm.
And it's not just now. There's a whole life for us to live together in a different way.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I think that what could potentially create rocky relationships is hanging on to unrealistic things like
Mhm.
wanting to parent, like identifying only as a mother
Mhm.
and not allowing your child to grow and experience and have whatever journey they need, right? I've seen that. I've worked with
Mhm.
lots of different people over the years where their whole identity was wrapped up in the child. And when
Mhm.
the child is becoming an adult, they go into depression and different issues, right? And then that puts a
Mhm.
strain on the relationship between the child who is now in adulthood and the parent who is still wanting the child to need them as a 5 year
Mhm.
old would need them, right? Not a
Mhm.
20-year-old. Or so I think you're onto something there. I think you're spot on. And it's funny, your grandma got us on this walking thing, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think as you think back even about your own childhood, like, what do you appreciate? Sometimes it's just the time that you got to spend together. It's not
Mhm.
like some of the things I thought about when you said that, was time that we got to be together, not like a major gift that I got or, a consumption of something.
Mhm.
But it was like, I think about my mom when we were in Salt Lake and, sometimes we'd go on walks around our block together and
Exactly.
just hang out. And those are the times that I think most of us cherish is that connection, the time of connection.
Yeah, I have, and that's the thing, like my niece is going through that part with her parents, and
Hmm.
I think her dad is more okay with it than her mom because her mom wasn't a part of her whole childhood. And I think they spent so much time during her childhood, her and her mother, they as in the mother and daughter, spent so much time trying to relive the past about what
Hmm.
happened and what could have been. And then they fought so much about like the anger of the past instead of actually trying to move forward together. And they spent so much time fighting that it's over now. Like you can't bring that back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're on good terms now and things are good, but I really think that I saw that firsthand this weekend. I watched this person realize I am done. Oh yeah, the wanting me and needing me as a 5-year-old's been over
Hmm.
and this is done. I cannot go back. And they're just so caught up in that. I think that they're going to have a really hard time trying to move past this. And, it's one of those things that I feel like as these chapters close, these beautiful relationships that we have, and like I think about my life, and you're right, I don't remember toys. I remember them if
Yeah.
they came with an emotion, like a joyous, like there was some like joy
Yeah.
around that thing or whatever was going on. I remember singing with my family, making up stupid songs, and that's what I do now with my family. And so I remember those things, and those are the things that I pass on. Dancing, playing, singing, having fun, being the parent, but also being with the child. And so, those are the simple things. So like hopefully when someone asks Nola when she's 100, like she
Hmm.
asked us, she can say, I remember singing or dancing or playing. Like it's not about these other things. It's this I'm able to physically dance and sing. I'm able to do that. I'm able to be that person. And so that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. I love that. And I think to close, just Going back to having that intention with everything you do, right? Like when you're with your children, be with your children, be present with the children, be engaged in the activity, not your phone, not your mind going to 50 other things that you need to do.
Mhm.
Because I think that's where that connection is really made, and you're truly present, and it's really a
Mhm.
cool experience when you can start to do that. All right, well, I think we're ready to sign off. So until next time, keep your vibration
And stay sassy.